Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sparks of Skyscrapers podcast, episode 3. I'm here with Keca Ward. Keca, go ahead and introduce yourself for me. Keca works for Phenom People. I'll let you explain what you do, and then I'll piggyback off of that. So go ahead.
Great. Hi, everyone. As Joe said, my name is Keca Ward, and I do work for Phenom People. I am the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition for Phenom, and I've been in HR and talent acquisition for about 20 years.
Awesome. And so how did you end up with Phenom People? Because I know we took a look at your LinkedIn and you had a degree in, was it fashion or something like that? And,
I did.
And then from there to a bunch of other startups. So I kind of want to hear a little bit of your story there, and how you ended up at Phenom.
All right, sure. So funny story. Well, not really, but how I specifically ended up at Phenom was really through networking, but I'll get back to that. But you are correct. I started my career in sales, not in fashion. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But from there, I went into recruiting sales, and through a couple mergers, acquisition, I ended up in this staffing and recruiting industry for about 10 years, where I was fortunate enough to start my own recruiting business. It was specific to the IT recruiting space in the Philadelphia market. From there, I went on to a much larger IT firm where I was fortunate enough to not only do recruiting, but also get my hands in some HR work. And then from that position, it really springboarded more into human resources and human capital, where I, again, went out on my own and did some HR consulting. And through that, I ended up at Phenom about 3.5 years ago, which Phenom at that time was a very young startup. I was brought in as employee number 45, in and around there. I don't know my specific number. But from there, today we're about over 1,000 employees. So super rapid growth and pretty exciting.
So basically HR is a broad term for what they do. And then the specifics of your role.
So Phenom is we are in the talent acquisition space, in the recruiting space. We when you think of
when you say talent acquisition, you mean talent acquisition for what exactly?
So I'll say it in the recruiting space.
Okay.
How about that? That's a little bit easier to understand. And we are a software company right outside of Philadelphia. And the company, when you think of other organizations that rely on experiences, one that you're probably familiar with, Uber, or Amazon, right? We've done the same thing at Phenom, but we've done it with jobs and the recruiting industry. So it's a software that makes that candidate and job experience, it brings it to the forefront, right? So very similar to how you would used to call a taxi, now you call an Uber.
Right.
We've done the same thing with jobs. So
absolutely. We talked about your degree and what kind of led you there in your professional life. What did you do as a kid? What did you spend your time doing as a kid? How did you spend your childhood? How did you grow up?
Do I want to say where I started? My first job was at Ursinus College.
Is that right? Look at that.
You know that?
Yes. Plug right above my shoulder there.
Yes. Lived when I was young. I lived right behind the university. I could walk to work. That was very early on. But through high school, my first job definitely was at Ursinus. There was a bookstore there. It's no longer there. And the reason I know that is I still walk the campus often, but I was fortunate enough to work a summer job at the Ursinus College Bookstore. And then a summer later, believe it or not, maybe I got promoted, I'm not sure, but or the bookstore closed, but I worked in another department painting dorm rooms. So for what it's worth, I was employed by Ursinus in the early days.
And what did you do at the bookstore? Did you stock shelves or do you work the front desk? You stock shelves?
I did. I mean, remember there was no online books back then. So students came in, they returned books, right? You got your money when you returned them. I'm sure you still do a little bit of that, but there was no online books and it was a small little store. And we also sold Ursinus merchandise as well at that bookstore, which I think probably you still do today. So,
Right. Any sports, anything like that throughout high school?
Yeah, good question. I did. I played several sports: field hockey, softball, and basketball all through high school. Played a little field hockey in college. And
IUP, right? Is that where
yeah, Indiana, University of Pennsylvania, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what position? Field hockey.
I was the front line on the wing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you think, so you're on the attack offense?
That's right.
Do you think that's played into your mindset at all from anything you've learned? Do you think any of your field hockey experience have played into your mindset of, talent acquisition and recruitment?
Probably, because it's very, very competitive.
Yeah.
It's a competitive landscape. So when you think about sports and competing, absolutely. Also teamwork, right? Being able to build strong teams, and that translates certainly into the workplace as well. So absolutely.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It usually does translate, right?
Yeah.
I played baseball when I was younger, and it's definitely same kind of thing, just the discipline of it and
right.
sports. But I mean, even with jobs, a lot of times it really does translate well into people's professions, which is why I always like to ask that. All right, so startups. That's the big thing that we wanted to talk to you about, because we are an entrepreneurship center.
Yes.
First question I have: what have you learned from your experience with the growth of Phenom People that you can share?
So we started out in a small office, like I said, under 50 employees. We were in the hallways at that office. We were busting out of it. We moved into a much larger facility now, where our headquarters are in Ambler. However, right before the pandemic, we were outgrown that space as well. So today we are, like I said, over 1,000 employees. In this year alone, we had 3 acquisitions across the year. What I learned mostly is every day is different in a startup. You have to be agile. You have to be able to change and adapt to the growth. And then from a people perspective, you have to be able to scale that growth, right? And so being agile and be able to shift gears and pivot is really critical in startup. Like I said, we were a different company 3.5 years ago when I began. The people that we brought on board 3.5 years ago are different people today, right? They've gained a whole bunch of skill sets. Some of them may not even be still with us, right? Because they weren't part of that growth. But even the company was different a year ago, right? So when you're in startup, every year, every week is different. One thing that really has remained consistent is our values and our mission. We are a mission-driven organization. And through that mission, we bring our whole self to work. We are focused on that mission, and that hasn't changed. And that's very important when we think about growth, because you have to have some consistency. And for us and each individual, not only our core values, but our mission really drives us to that alignment. Yeah.
So going forward with Phenom, what do you see as the future? What do you want to become as a startup, as a company? What are your goals?
Well, I'll talk about me individually. I don't know if I can answer for the whole organization, but I'll give it a whirl. We continue to be a people-first organization. And like I said earlier, our mission and our values are very critical. Our mission is to help 1 billion people find the right job. And no matter what job we're in at Phenom, we truly believe that is our purpose. We also are very unique and different at Phenom. We use a hashtag called Not Normal, and each of us brings our whole self, like I mentioned, to work, but each of us is unique. And we really value equality, inclusion, and diversity. And so when we think about the future, is really to bring in more diverse talent into the organization to help us scale. We also want to keep that employee experience at the forefront, right? So our employees and their families really do matter. And so the future, when we think about it, one, I think, is coming back to work, getting back into some sort of office. It's been so long because we are a very collaborative organization, and we miss that. So it's hard to do that over Zoom sometimes. So it'll be different, but the future is that. Now, the future for Phenom is bright. We've had tremendous growth, tremendous revenue. Like I said, we've grown through acquisition. We definitely have that pre-IPO feel. We will, everything in us will become public, hopefully one of these days, which is super exciting.
Yep.
So that's what I believe the future is.
Yeah. What do you think you've contributed to the growth of Phenom, if anything, that you can think of?
Well, like I said earlier, I bring a unique background. I have a sales background. I have a recruiting background. And also I've been fortunate enough to be in HR for quite some time. And because of that unique blend of skill set, I was able to really pivot as the company grew to different stages within the organization. So early on, we still can continue to be very heavy recruiting, but I was able to do that hands-on work and grow a team. And then I was able to certainly pivot and move more towards the employee experience as the company began to grow and scale. And so designing programs that relate to our employees, our managers, and all of our teams across the globe really is how I've made tremendous contributions to the organization. And I always go back to it, but we keep the core values and that mission very, very close to our heart. And so being able to support that through our employees has been my role. So
absolutely. And I mean, that goes right back to field hockey and sports, right?
That's right.
Work and leadership. And it is really crazy how that works. So after you have a great idea for a startup, what are some next steps that you go to get the wheels moving on your business?
I believe that the first thing you should do is really ask for help and network, right? Your people that you share your idea with, or you can get help from, because it's hard in the beginning, right? So being able to network with everyone, everywhere, no matter where you are, is probably a critical skill set that you'll need after you get your idea off the ground. I would also say that if you have to come through some self-realization that you're not good at everything, right? And find your strength and your skill set and go out and hire the people that have the skills that you need to start that business that you might not have. And it's okay, right? We're all not good at everything. But you're going to need marketing. You're going to need accounting. You're going to need these skill sets to grow your business. Maybe not all right away, right, but certainly you're going to need them. And so really reflect and take a deeper dive in yourself and understand what I'm good at, and then go find people to help you or hire people to move your business forward.
Right. And hiring people requires money.
That's right.
Funding, probably the biggest thing that any startup would ever struggle with. Mm-hmm. In your experience, what's the best way to get funding for a startup that, maybe isn't an idea that catches the eye, but it is a good idea, but maybe it doesn't necessarily, check all the boxes that people giving out loans are looking for, right? How do you secure funding?
So I'll use the sports analogy, never give up, because I think that's really the piece that, because everyone's going to tell you no, and you just got to keep trying. It's tough, right? I know our CEO, he tells the story about how he started Phenom and kept knocking on doors, and 100 and so no's, and finally one said yes, and here we are today. But it's just a matter of persistence and not giving up, because you need to. I don't know if I have the silver bullet to answer that question.
Right.
But if we relate it back to the sports analogy, it has to be, keep trying.
Never give up.
If you get knocked down, get back up, right? And it's the only way you're going to win, to get that funding. So.
Right. This is a good question. I think you're going to like this one. How has your degree in fashion merchandising translated to your career in HR?
It hasn't.
It hasn't at all? Okay, so follow-up question. I have this here because I kind of figured that that might be the answer.
You think? Yeah.
What would you tell a current student that is worried that their degree won't translate into the workforce?
Right. So, and I unfortunately, I did not have an opportunity to do anything with my degree. However, I do love to shop, but that has nothing to do with fashion merchandising. But there are so many skills that I learned in college that help me today in my current role. And not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. So I stress that because there are so many things you learn in college that are beyond your general eds and your major classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, I was fortunate enough to be president of my sorority in college, and that's leading a group of 100 girls, right? And that was truly my first taste of entrepreneurialism, right? I changed things up. I did things differently than the past president, but I was also learning skills back then that I use today: time management, delegating tasks, leading meetings. Like these are skills that I continue to use. I've used throughout my entire career, and I will continue to use. They're invaluable skills that I learned. So when you get into your major classes, it's important that hopefully you lead in that path of what you're studying for. But if not, it's okay, right? Because there's opportunity out there in the world that for everyone. So I think what you learn in college, no matter inside, outside the classroom, is invaluable. So I tell everyone, just keep your head up. And it's a tough time to get a job right now. The jobs,
Yeah.
they're hard, but keep your chin up, do things differently, think outside the box, try to stand out versus your peers, but don't think that the major is everything, right? Look at me. I did nothing in fashion. So,
I didn't know that you're the president of your sorority. That's cool. How many girls were in the sorority?
there was about 100. Yeah.
And
yeah.
how many people do you manage today? Would you say?
Oh, today my team is pretty small.
Okay.
There's only about 3, but however, I do
skills.
support the whole workforce. So
Yeah.
you could say that the whole company is kind of that, but and then one of my other early jobs, someone approached me to do what I'll call a side gig, for what it's worth, because gigs are, the future of work. But back then it was just this side hustle. And I took that opportunity, and that was my second this was early on in my career. That was my second taste of entrepreneurship too, because they said, go do this, go try to sell this side business. It was a side recruiting business, and it was great. Me and a colleague went over to a side office, and we started working and building a business plan and doing things like that. Now, we were funded by the major corporation, which was easy back then. But my point is that even back then, some 20 years ago, I was also in the entrepreneur space. So it's been great. So yeah.
You mentioned you guys are still over Zoom. Is anybody in person in your office yet, or are you guys still full?
Yeah, we're not, right? We are still 100% remote, and we were fortunate enough that all of us could be remote, but we are not back yet. We don't. Who knows?
I get it. I'm just wondering. Yeah. So, what was the adjustment? Going on the fly from. I mean, what was that? I ask everybody that comes on, what was it like?
Yeah.
With COVID and when it hit, and how did it affect you guys? And then going off of that, how did you adjust fast? Because that's an entrepreneurial thing as well. How did you adjust on the fly and keep moving?
That's right. And I think we were fortunate. Like I said, we were able to go 100% remote across the globe with minor hiccups. And we were fully operational within a few days. If we lost no sleep over anything. Now that was probably because the growth stage that we were in, and we were very, like I said, we are used to change every single day.
Yep.
I wouldn't say that it translated easily for working parents that had to now work full time as well, and then take care of children, homeschool, and things like that. So there was an adjustment for some of our employees early on. Fast forward to the summer, we were about 6 months in, we surveyed our employees and everyone was doing great. They adjusted and they changed. But those beginning months of not knowing, kids go to school, kids come home, it's tough for some of the working parents that had to do that. And then the worry of being sick, right, was also on their minds. And if they got sick, that was also something. We were 100% flexible though with being able, if you were sick, just take the time you needed. So, but I think now it's been a year almost to the date where we closed. We are, like I said, we were doing great, but we do miss the collaboration piece and the human connection. Like I said, doing these Zooms is okay, but you definitely, there's things that you can certainly get out of when you're in person. So, but
we're all ready to go back.
I know.
We're all ready for some kind of normalcy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. 1 second. Let me get some water here as well. Alrighty. I think I honestly just have one more for you. I want to talk about, we touched on it briefly, like going forward, what are your goals? Personally, is there anything else that you want to accomplish?
Well, I'm excited for the future of the organization I'm with now, Phenom, right? We are, like I said, growing at rapid pace. So I'm excited to see how far we go and what the company will look like a year from now, 5 years from now. And being able to be part of that growth is exciting. So I am looking forward to the journey. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think I enjoy the growing pains, craziness at times, I'll call it, because it is in startup. It's crazy. But I'm looking forward to it. So I'm excited. As far as personally, well, who knows, right? There's still opportunity out there. We'll see what the future holds. I don't know. Right now, I'm completely content for the foreseeable future.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. We all do. I'm sure our listeners will definitely appreciate your insights. Guys, we will see you on our next episode at some point this coming semester. We're not exactly sure the date or the guest yet, but we told you we'd do 2 a semester. So we will be back for another episode before summer break. Thank you guys for listening, watching, and we'll see you next time.